Welcome to Caregiver SOS On Air, presented by the WellMed Charitable Foundation, with nationally known gerontologist Carol Zernail and award-winning veteran broadcaster Ron Aaron. This program provides health, wellness, and other information for caregivers who are vital to the health and well-being of so many people across our country. And now, here are your hosts, Ron Aaron and Carol Zernail.
Well, hello there and welcome to the award-winning Caregiver SOS On Air, our podcast available wherever you listen to your podcast, and we're also on the radio in several cities in Texas and Florida as well. I'm Ron Aaron, along with our co-host, Carol Zernail. Carol, as many of you know, has a master's degree in social gerontology, some 30 years' experience in the field. She's co-chair of the RAISE Family Caregiving Advisory Council and executive director of the WellMed Charitable Foundation. And Carol, in a couple of moments, we'll be talking with a fellow who's been a frequent guest on Caregiver SOS On Air. He knows all things techno and AI, and Scott Lien will be with us. So, Carol, are you embracing AI in your life?
You know, I was a little bit foot dragging until I realized that my son was using, AI had become his best friend. He's having these long conversations, these philosophical discussions. And then at work, we started getting these emails. Try having, AI write your emails. Try AI to summarize things. And then all of a sudden, it's overlaid automatically in Google. So it's everywhere, right? But there's positive and negatives, which is why I'm thrilled to have Scott Lien join us today to talk about technology and AI and us as caregivers.
Well, let me take a moment to introduce Scott. He's a seasoned entrepreneur and executive with some 30 years of experience across startups and global corporations, now charting the future of community innovation with his latest venture, the Vidar Group. Over his career, Scott has been integral to 5 startup ventures and held senior roles at major U.S. companies, including Bank of America, Intuit, and Best Buy. He launched and scaled GrandPad, a pioneering technology company that enhanced the lives of millions of older adults around the world, before co-founding the Vidar Group in 2025. It's a Minnesota-based, mission-driven enterprise addressing loneliness, isolation, and more through using AI for good, focused on human-to-human connection. Scott holds a double major in computer science and business management from Luther College in Decorah, Iowa. And Scott Lien, it's wonderful having you back. Talk to us about AI and the Vidar Group.
Yeah, well, first, thanks for the introduction. It's great to be with you again. And it's just such an important topic, the intersection of caregiving and technology, and specifically AI. We all know caregiving is hard. It can be very overwhelming at times. And we know there's not enough caregivers. So any tools that can help us is really important. So Carol, just building off your announcement or your comment, AI is coming. The genie's out of the bottle. Even if we want to put it in and back in the bottle and stop it, it's here, and it's only gaining ground. And I think we're kind of at that stage when, back in, the early 1900s, when the horse and buggy was the way people got around. And then all of a sudden this cool thing called the car came out, and a lot of people liked horses and didn't want cars, and cars were noisy and smelly and all this, but it was inevitable. They came. And so people adapted to that. But just like this, we've got to, just with AI, just like other technologies, we've got to figure out how we harness it, shape it, use it in a good way to help us. And I believe that AI is the most powerful technology that humans have ever created, which is a big statement given a lot of the things that we've invented, but because it's the first time that we've created something that actually can get smarter on its own, right? We invented a car is a car. It can't build itself. It can't get better. Humans made the cars better. AI can actually and is already improving itself.
What does that mean?
That means that today is the worst that AI will ever be. It's better tomorrow. It's better the next day. It's self-improving, given that it's learning every day. Okay, and what that means for us in a caregiver context is it can really be a great tool to help us. And in a broader healthcare context, AI is already having some incredible results in the healthcare space. Again, helping humans be smarter, more efficient, be more creative. And here's the big thing for all of us. I'm 61, I forget things like everybody else. AI doesn't forget things. So as you give it information, it remembers things from before. And I'm going to give some examples today of how that can be really useful in the caregiver context. But I really want to emphasize there's a lot of good that can come from it, and there's a lot of bad. And Carol, again, you mentioned like young people using it as their friend. And, a little bit of using it for advice is okay. But, what we're trying to do with the VDAR group is really how do we use this tool to help more human to human connection? That's the key.
Yeah, which you don't necessarily associate AI with human to human connection. But speaking of that, level set for us, you have caregiving experience. So, you bring to the table an understanding.
Yeah, I do. In several contexts. Sadly, all four of my parents and my mother and father-in-law all passed away in the last 6 years. So we went down the caregiving experience and all four of them died of cancer. So, and I remember when it was my father first, like when you're hit with just this, you have terminal cancer, here's your options. And I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse. And all of a sudden you're sitting in that room overwhelmed by that emotion and they're laying all these buzzwords on them. It's not the healthcare professional's fault. They're speaking, very clearly in medical terms, but I couldn't understand it.
Hold that thought. We're going to come right back to you. For those of you who may have just joined us, you're listening to the award-winning Caregiver SOS on air. I'm Ron Aaron. Carol Zernail, our co-host, is here, and we're talking with Scott Lien. We're talking about the new company he is launching called the VDAR Group and its role when it comes to AI. You mentioned your parents have passed away, all from cancer. Are we at a point where AI might have helped with the diagnosis and treatment for them?
Yeah, absolutely. I in preparation for this conversation today, I'd heard about this last summer. I pulled it up. Mayo Clinic, which is down the street from me here in Minnesota, is now using AI and analyzing routine CT scans, and already in a validated medical research, validated, they're able to identify pancreatic cancer 9 to 12 months earlier than without AI. That's enormous. Pancreatic cancer is hard to detect, and it's deadly. Steve Jobs died of pancreatic cancer. And so now, we have tools that is going to for sure, detect and enable earlier treatment and likely will save lives or at least extend lives and so on. Another one I saw, a large population study showed AI assisted in screening and detected 20% more breast cancer than standard workflows. These are massive and we're just getting started. So absolutely, that's where it's used by, healthcare institutions. But I want to speak to very personal because all of us are caregivers in our own families, right? And I became a sudden caregiver just this past summer when my wife, who's 60 and healthy and fit as a fiddle, suddenly came down with terrible pneumonia. Just really hit her hard. Went from home healthy, emergency room, ended up spending 8 days in the hospital at Mayo Clinic, and talk of sepsis and all kinds of things. And all of a sudden, I'm overwhelmed with all these test results and all this information. Scared, panicked, talking to my medical friends, helping navigate, and the doctors and nurses were fantastic. But I had to absorb all this and understand what are the questions to ask. I used AI. I used ChatGPT on my phone. All the test results and all the diagnosis was coming from the doctors and nurses, and she's getting, 6-8 tests a day. I'm feeding that into ChatGPT, and it's advising me. Here's where you should be concerned. This is okay. This is looking good. Here's the questions to ask the doctor. So now I'm better informed. I'm worrying about the right things and not worrying about the wrong things. I'm able to have an intelligent conversation with my doctor and, guide. And luckily my wife pulled through all that and isn't good. But that's how we can use these tools, day to day.
Now, there's always an alert with ChatGPT that says ChatGPT can be wrong.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Just like us humans can be wrong too, right? Whether you're talking to your lawyer or your doctor, sometimes they're wrong too. So that's one of the things that I strongly emphasize is double check, ask questions. I would never, as a non-medical professional, take something I got from ChatGPT as the final answer and say, okay, I'm going to go do this based on that. But it can help you ask the right questions and help you validate and confirm that. And that's what I found really useful.
And what role does your new company play in all of this?
Yeah. So first, we're trying to do things like this to educate people. The key, and here's the strong message for everyone. We should all engage in this technology and use it, play with it in a non-risky way, right? And I had been using it before this sudden incident where, I'm in the ER with my wife. So that when the time comes, we can use these tools, right? And you can, use it. And my recommendation is one of the big three LLMs. So we all know about ChatGPT from OpenAI. Gemini from Google is another good one. And then the third one is Claude from Anthropic. Those are the big three. Use one of those that you're comfortable with and try some very low risk, simple things that you have no concern about data privacy. It might be, tell me about, the weather, or tell me about how does a bird fly, or tell me why World War I started, or something like that to get used to the tools. And then you might start to ask it some questions. So what causes diabetes? Or, if someone's experiencing this kind of pain, what does that mean, right? So again, you're not giving any personal information. You're just asking general questions. You're starting to get comfortable using this tool and seeing what it can and can't do.
Hold that thought.
Yeah, I think that you make a really good point about testing it out. No big privacy leaks there. My friends are using it for recipes, right? Or let's say mom's diabetic. If you're a caregiver, give me a week's worth of menus, things that I could fix, commonly found in the refrigerator or my pantry that would be diabetic friendly. And you will be amazed at the week's worth of recipes or menus that you get.
That's right. There's even some fun things. You can take a picture, open your refrigerator door, take a picture and say, what should I make for dinner given what I have? And ChatGPT will come back and say, oh, I see you have this, that, and the other thing. Here's a recipe given the ingredient. I mean, that's amazing. That's fun. But I'll give a couple other really practical things. So oftentimes there's a language barrier, and you need someone to translate from English to Spanish or whatever. It's a great translator. So, you got to be sure when you're talking about care for mom. And so use it as a translator. Daily change tracker, what changed today? So using a log about things and then having it analyze that information for you. Stress support. It can be really helpful. Hey, I'm feeling really stressed about this situation. Give me some advice. It's interesting, Carol, again, given your opening comment, the number one business use of AI today is in counseling and therapy. So it can be a good sounding board for people to talk through things.
All right, Scott, hold that thought. We're going to come right back to you. If you just joined us, you're listening to the award-winning Caregiver SOS on Air. I'm Ron Aaron, along with Carol Zernail. Scott Lien is with us. He's the founder of a new group called the Vidar Group, and they're trying to grow it into the AI field. You're listening to Caregiver SOS on Air.
Well, thank you so much for listening to Caregiver SOS on Air. We're delighted to have you with us. We come to you every week with a discussion of an issue, a problem, some accomplishments involved in caregiving with more than 60 million caregivers across this country, but most thinking they are the Lone Rangers. We try to bring you the latest information and help that can make that job easier and more manageable. Caregiver SOS on Air takes a look at trends across this country. We provide tips on how to be a better caregiver, and most importantly, where you can go for help. On Caregiver SOS on Air, we try to give you what you need to make that caregiving manageable and to provide you with the help that can make your life easier. I'm Ron Aaron. Carol Zernail and I are delighted to co-host this program, and we're thrilled you've joined us on the award-winning Caregiver SOS on Air podcasts available everywhere, brought to you by WellMed Charitable Foundation.
Hello, friend. Hello, friend. Really good to see you once again. Hello, friend. Hello, friend. Really good to see you once again.
I wonder if we could turn this whole thing over to AI. and Carol and I can just kind of sit here and let AI take it over. I'm Ron Aaron. You're listening to the award-winning Caregiver SOS on air. Scott Lien is our special guest today. We've talked to him over the years about his company, Grand Pad, the incredible work it has done to help seniors communicate with one another. He now has a new venture called the Vidar Group, which is focused on the use of AI in our lives. And Scott Lien, how do you turn this into a money-making venture for yourself?
Yeah, it's an incredible time to start a new company, given we now have an amazing tool that can help us accelerate and do things extremely efficiently, quicker. So we're doing two things. One is we're doing consulting, educating, helping companies use these tools. And again, we're very selective about the clients we work with, where we can do good things with these tools. And second is we're creating other services, software AI-based services that, again, are very mission driven. So, I'm 61. When I turned 50, I decided I'm going to only work on things that are really near to my heart, that I'm passionate about, mission driven, that are going to do some good in the world. So, for instance, we're working on some new things that we're happy to tell you about in a few months that are really focused on bringing people together, human to human connection. So in this world of AI and misinformation and, the term AI slop, you look at stuff on Facebook and half of it's fake. We believe that true, authentic human to human connection, face to face, is going to be more valued than ever. So we're trying to facilitate that. So, and lastly, we're helping other companies accelerate their use of AI. So one that I want to mention, because it's great, they're using AI, we're helping them. It's a company called Halo Care. And it's a great example because we've been talking about ChatGPT and LLMs, large language models. There's another use of AI where it's analyzing vast information data sets. Halo Care is all about helping seniors stay and continue to live independently in their own homes. And they do that by having sensors, not cameras, sensors throughout the home. And they can see, is Scott Lien up and moving around his house normally? Did he get something to drink? Is he out of bed? It's a lot of data. AI can analyze that and say, well, Scott's not following his normal pattern. Normally Scott gets up at 8 a.m. It's 9 o'clock. He didn't get up. He didn't go to the refrigerator. He didn't take his medication. So now all of a sudden we can, then the human connection, they have a care hub. So that gets, AI notices that, gets escalated to a human. A human can reach out to Grandpa Scott and go, hey, Scott, what's going on? We noticed maybe you got, are you not feeling so well? Yeah, I feel like I'm getting the flu. Okay, we can intervene before it comes catastrophic. So that's an example of a company that we're helping called Halo Care that's doing amazing work of helping seniors live independently at home.
Well, I think that, it's fascinating. This morning, I had a conversation with some aging funders group that went to the Consumer Electronics Show. And they were talking about, and they're just meeting with age tech companies. They were talking about the quantum leap from last year's show to this year's show with the AI. They were talking about what you just mentioned, saying that, we have to be careful. We want technology and AI that does no harm. And where cameras and sort of spying technology is bad, well, you just talked about sensors, something digital that's measuring something that gives you an analysis. That's good. And you haven't talked about this. The last thing they were talking about is advances in exoskeletons that may help caregivers in long-term care and at home with tasks that they physically can't do or their loved one physically can't do, which I thought was fascinating.
Yeah, those are all great examples, Carol. And that's where, these tools, when used properly, can absolutely be transformational for all of us, but especially the elderly, whether it's an exoskeleton that helps people move around, breakthroughs. I'm convinced, as I've looked at this technology deeply, AI, and I don't call it artificial intelligence. I call it augmented intelligence. It can help us be smarter, right? And so using these tools, it's going to help the human beings discover, treatments, therapies, cures, and preventions for some of these horrible diseases, cancers, hopefully Alzheimer's, right? I mean, we'll figure all these things out someday, but hopefully AI will reduce that window so all of us can benefit, right? And it can be really, dramatically improve people's lives and reduce costs. We all know healthcare is a challenging cost. If AI can help cut costs a little bit and everybody get better outcomes, that's a win for everybody.
Well, can you just briefly tell us some of the danger spots, though? What should we not be doing with ChatGPT or AI?
Yeah, and I'm very loud and vocal. We need to be careful, right? And I use this little acronym called the CARE framework that helps me remember, and I advise people. So CARE. So first C, any critical decisions stay human led. Like I said earlier, I'm not going to take anything from ChatGPT or any of these LLMs as the final answer. It's input. I'm going to analyze that and I'm going to talk to my medical professional about it. And they may say, yeah, Scott, you're right. Or, no, I disagree. And let's talk, so it's like get a second opinion. A is assume errors. It's not perfect. Humans aren't perfect either. But, assume that there's going to be some errors and hallucinations and double check, double check. It is getting better every day, but the errors are still there. R, reduce data shared. So be careful what you share. And I gave examples. You don't have to say, hey, this is Scott Lien, this is my social security, this is my medical ID. You can ask it hypothetical questions. So what if you had a 61-year-old male that weighs this and da-da-da and keep it confidential? And E, escalate when a risk is high. If there's urgent systems, with my wife, when all of a sudden she went from healthy to 104 fever, boom, we went to the emergency room. I wasn't sitting home asking ChatGPT. We were in ER. And that's the example. So keep that framework in mind and be careful. Know that videos, we can do deepfake videos. So someone can impersonate your son, your daughter, your doctor. They can spoof your voice. Sadly, we need to be suspicious. When in doubt, ask some questions.
And are there any
that would be our voice?
Are there
right?
any monitors for all this? Is there some government entity that's protecting us, and should there be?
Yeah, the pendulum swung back and forth on that. Right now in the U.S., the general mindset is less regulations around AI and tech. That there's a realization we're in this incredible period of innovation, and the U.S. wants to win the innovation war and compete. And so there's a fear that if we put too many regulations. So I think, that's the world we live in. Europe tends to have more regulations on this right now. I will say there's some red line things that I feel very strongly. There absolutely has to be regulations. People are using AI to generate these horrible deep fake videos and, doing terrible things with people in those. That has to be stopped. And so government agencies are stepping in. But I think the onus is on us, the individuals, to educate ourselves and be careful and use these things appropriately.
And where can you go to learn more about this if I want to educate myself about AI?
Yeah, so start and do a little Googling. I'd watch some good YouTube videos. And again, the three I mentioned, ChatGPT, which is from OpenAI, Gemini, which is from Google. Some people have kind of a Google bias. They're a long-established company. Some of us use Gmail. And then the third one is Claude from Anthropic. And Claude from Anthropic tends to be focused more on corporations, so healthcare providers where they're plugging it in, using it in a corporate environment. So a little research and watching some YouTube videos. And again, using these tools, almost all these, there's a free trial kind of version, so it doesn't cost anything. And do these low risk things, but the key is educate yourself. And then, lastly, there's companies like ours that help advise people and want to help people understand these tools.
You haven't mentioned Elon Musk's Grok.
Yeah, that one's emerging, and that's an example. Like they're also very focused on self-driving cars are here. Whether people believe it or not, I've ridden in a Waymo. No one driving my taxi, if you will. My son has a fully self-driving Tesla. He drives all over LA, never touches the wheel. So their Tesla is using AI Grok in their self-driving cars, and then they're putting that AI. We haven't even talked about there will be a huge explosion of robots being used in factories. And here's a pragmatic example in the caregiving space or elderly. Maybe here I live in Minnesota. I can't shovel, I'm older and I can't go outside and shovel the 3 feet of snow we got last night. There'll be a robotic snowblower that just goes and does it for me.
Perfect.
Okay.
And we're going to end it right there. All of us want robots. Carol is in love with the whole concept of robots. I'm Ron Aaron. Carol Zernail, our co-host. Thank you so much for Scott Lien. The company is Vidar, and if you Google it, I'm sure you can find out a little more about it. Thanks for joining us today on the award-winning Caregiver SOS On Air.
The executive producer for Caregiver SOS On Air is Daniel Calderon. The producer is Sharice Pendleton. And the associate producer is Catherine Oglesby. We'll see you next week on Caregiver SOS On Air.
You've been listening to Caregiver SOS On Air, an exclusive presentation of the WellMed Charitable Foundation. We welcome emails with suggestions and comments on this program at radio@wellmed.net. Join co-hosts Carol Zernail and Ron Aaron next week for more on caregiving, improving the health and well-being of caregivers and their care recipients everywhere. For more on caregiving and podcasts of our programs, visit caregiversos.org.